Welcome to Tinawag. Welcome, everyone. Today we'll have a webinar on a topic that we have not addressed or discussed before. Today we'll be talking about how one can apply to a fellowship, a US-based fellowship, without necessarily having done a US-based residency. We have our guest, Dr. Azza Abubakar, today. Thank you, Dr. Azza, for joining us today. Please introduce yourself and a little bit of your medical background.
Thank you, Sabrina. Thank you, everyone, for joining the webinar. My name is Azza Abubakar. I'm an IMG. I was born and raised in Sudan. I was graduated in Sudan. I came into the US in 2017 pursuing residency. I finished my nephrology fellowship and I'm currently doing an internal medicine residency. It's my first year. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again for joining us. So we will first start with questions from the moderators. Today I will be moderating together with Dr. Rahwa. So we will start with questions from us, and then later on the webinar, we will open up the floor to you, the audience. So at any point, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A chat box below. You can find it below your screen. You can write your questions there at any time, and we will address it later on in the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sabrina. I'll take it from here. So my name is Dr. Rahwa Maha. I'm a moderator here at the Tinawag webinar series, and I'll be asking the next question. So for our audiences who are not familiar with the fellowship process as an IMG in America, can you give us a brief overview of your overall fellowship application process and what milestones you had on that?
All right, so to be honest, at first, when I started my application process, I was aiming towards residency, just like anyone else who just graduated. Like their path should be residency and then fellowship. But as we all know, IMGs has it like harder than anyone else because we have to compete with the American grad, we have to compete with the osteopathic medicine or the Caribbean graduates who are also a very good competitor, along with other IMGs. So the competition is there. Being an IMG, applying to residency, you have to have, as we all know, you have to be a recent grad, you have to have like certain number of scores, and it's always getting, very competitive. And we have like certain residencies it's more really easily to IMGs to apply to, like internal medicine, pediatric, family medicine, relatively easier than other residencies like surgery, like dermatology, for example. So given all of that, I started my journey and I applied first year, I didn't get in. Second year, I didn't get in. Third year, I didn't get in. So along with my other friends, at that time, we didn't have that resources. We didn't know. So my advice to everyone, like knowledge is power. The right advice from the right person will help you a lot, will guide you through your way. So, and then I came to know that, hey, by the way, you can do fellowship. And I was like, how would I do that? Everyone has their web for USMLE exam. Okay, I'll answer that. Then I would ask, how would you apply to fellowship? There is two pathways. As long as you are an IMG who has a certain number of years, you don't necessarily need to complete your residency at your home country. That is very important. You do not need to complete residency at your home country. You only need to have a residency equivalent training, which like I did, as we all know, we can practice a number of years as a general practitioner, right? So I practiced like over 7 years as a general practitioner at my home country. So that considered as a residency equivalent training. So I did not know that. I thought that I need to have an MD in order for me to apply for fellowship. So and I need to complete my step 3. As we all know that step 1, step 2, and recently the OET exam are necessary to do the ECFMG certificate for everyone to apply to residency. For anyone to apply to fellowship, you have to complete your step 3. Okay, so did all of that and apply through the ERAS fellowship. As when we register for ERAS residency, there is an ERAS fellowship as well. Unfortunately, when I applied through the ERAS fellowship, it was like late during the cycle. So I did not get anything. I did not get any interviews. But luckily, there is a process which you can apply after the match. So the fellowship match is in December, this December. After the results of the match, and then you can apply later. I'm gonna save the details for later questions. I don't want to say anything right now, but hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah. So we'll be asking you more on a lot of the details you gave us. So for a person who's applying for a fellowship, what are the certifications and qualifications or licenses that program directors require?
So as I said, you have to have a residency equivalent training. That means you can, it's very simple. You just write it in your CV. I completed so-and-so number of years practicing as an internal medicine, practicing internal medicine and preferably need to be in one institution, like not like a different hospitals, just preferably need to be in one hospital. And it needs to be at least 3 years because residency is at least 3 years here in the US. So let's say, write it in your CV. I practiced like 4+ years in so-and-so hospital as an internal medicine physician or as a general practitioner. And then you write in your reference, like anyone who you worked with, any of your consultant or attendings. So write in their reference, their name, and their CV. They don't necessarily ask of any paper proof that you trained there or anything like that. Your CV is enough. But the most important certification is, of course, the ECFMG certification, as we all know. Step 3, everyone, they will ask you straightforward if you have step 3. And as we said, the paper that says that you are trained in internal medicine in so-and-so hospital, and this is your references. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. You mean that you can join, you mean that you can join fellowship without step 1, 2, 3? No, actually you don't. You need to have an ECFMG certificate. That means you need to complete your step 1, step 2, and OET exam plus step 3 in order to apply for the fellowship.
Okay, I think that's a good question that they asked. Goes with what we were discussing about. So when it comes to fellowship programs, how are you able to find it? Are all medical institutions that you apply for residency, do they also have an option for fellowship, or how does that work? How do you find the exact programs that give this opportunity?
Okay, so it needs a little bit of digging and working. As we know that fellowships need to be in an university program, since all community programs do not have that teaching capacity to do fellowships. So if you're looking for a fellowship, that means you're focusing on university programs. Are you has anyone know like what's the resources to search up residency programs? You know that there is a website called Frida that you can type in internal medicine residency and give you a list with all the residencies in the US. You can do the same, like let's say geriatric fellowship. Like you can type in geriatric fellowship in their website and it will give you all the geriatric fellowships programs in the US. And by the way, if you want to apply to a fellowship without residency in the US, it's only 3 fellowships. It's either geriatric, nephrology, or infectious disease. So going to one of those websites, Farida, that's the one that I know. That's the one that I know. Go in and type in, let's say, nephrology fellowships. Is there any question?
Yeah, I think it's good. There's one that came, maybe because it's related, we can ask you now. Someone from the audience said, is there a possible way to apply for fellowship in surgical fields?
I don't want to say no, but it's very hard since all the surgical fellowship requires a US residency, but everything is possible. You can definitely try. You can, let's say, type in what kind of surgery that you want to do. Let's say you want to do transplant surgery or transplant fellowship. Type in transplant fellowship and apply to the university programs that has a transplant fellowship. And maybe you will have a good, I'm not sure who's the person is asking, maybe you finished your surgery residency in one of the countries that the US actually like recognize their residency. I know a lot of people who did residency in Qatar. They are very well recognized in the US. They can do fellowship here. So it's not a hard no. I know it's very hard to find surgical fellowship here without residency, but you can definitely try.
All right, thank you. So I just want to ask people, if you have questions, it's easier if you write it in the chat box, not the chat box, but the Q&A box. I see a lot of questions coming in our chat box. It can get lost if you put it in the chat box, so please use the Q&A box. It's on, you can see it on your screen, and it will be easier for us to answer it later on. It keeps it more organized for us. Thank you. So another question that we have is, what are some of the things that IMG should have in mind when they apply for fellowship programs? What are the challenges that you faced and what most IMGs face when applying for a fellowship?
Actually, as I said, we cannot apply to all the fellowship without residencies. It's only geriatric and infectious disease and nephrology. A lot of the challenges that we're facing is because the ERAS for fellowship, of course, you have it's a whole process. You have to register, you have to fill in all the the letter of recommendation, personal statement, and everything that we know. Plus that it requires you to pay certain amount of money, so that's also like a financial challenge on the side. But I want to give you a really good viable option, which I did. As I said, I didn't finish my story. I started applying to the fellowship using the ERAS. I was not successful since all the applicants in the ERAS are US resident, finishing their US residency. So they are very, very, very highly competitive. So what I end up doing after the match result there is an unfilled positions. So if you search up like fellowship unfilled positions, like after the match, which mainly after December, or that's your chance to apply for fellowship. It's not really an official process. Go and, as I said, type in Frida, type in all the fellowship programs. Let's say nephrology fellowship in the US, they will give you like probably 100 program. Okay, this is a very intense process. You need, you and your friend, maybe like two of you together can do it, or 3 of you can do it. Let's say me and Sabrina are looking up for nephrology fellowship. Okay, I'll say, okay, Sabrina, I looked up in Frida and I had 100 program. I'll give you 50 program, and I will look up the next 50 program. So you will take the first 50 programs, you will look up their emails for the either the program director or the coordinator. Okay, so you will type in their emails. It will take you about an hour or 2 hours, depending on your time. And I will look up the second half of the programs, and I will type in their emails. What you end up doing, create an email. Okay, write a very nice email, say, hi, Miss, or whatever, and my name is so-and-so, I'm an IMG, I have graduated this year, and I have, give a brief about your, CV, because nobody has the time to read everything. It needs to be like 1 paragraph, or like maximum. It doesn't need to be a long email. So let's say, my name is Azam. I'm from Sudan. I graduated and I worked over 7 years as an internal medicine physician in Sudan. I'm interested in joining your nephrology fellowship if you have an opening. And my CV is attached to this email if you want to look at it. And feel free to contact me. This is my contact number. What you want to do is, because there is 100 email, right? Send the same email to 100 program, but it's just 1 click. You don't have to type in 100 times. Write a BCC, like a blind CC copy to all the programs. Okay, like when we CC someone in the email, just do like a blind CC, BCC, and copy paste all the 100 emails that you have in from Frida. Copy paste them and send. So that's how I did it. It was like, shooting in the dark, but surprisingly, I got a response, because nephrology fellowship and infectious disease and geriatric, they always, like, they somehow, a lot of programs end up unfilled or unmatched. Last year, one of the big programs here in Philadelphia, nephrology fellowship program, end up completely unmatched. Like, they have 4 open positions. So this is a very good chance for IMGs without residency to apply to. So you don't need necessarily to know what's the name of the programs. As you know, you search up the entire Frida, you know the entire list of the programs, and you send them like a 1 email with 1 click. So that is a good thing. Second thing, I had a friend who completed her fellowship. So I know that this program, so she was like my inside person. So she told me, hey, is your CV ready? And I'm like, yes, we have an open position. Like, someone has just canceled. You can just send in your CV to the program director. So if you have that person, that would be great. Otherwise, the email the entire list of the fellowship programs. Either you and your friend can sit down on one afternoon and finish that. That would be so helpful and so great. And I assure you, you will get responses.
Okay. Just to piggyback on that question, is there a way applicants can know if a program is IMG friendly or not? And Another question would be for someone who has the option to do both residency and fellowship program, what are the drawbacks with doing fellowship without doing your US residency?
Okay, so let's go back to the first question. What is I'm sorry. I was reading a question and then so
I can repeat.
first
Okay.
question.
Is there a way applicants can know if a program is IMG friendly?
Yes. So you can definitely go into their website. That's a very, primitive way of knowing if you don't know anyone. Go into their website, look up, because the website will say meet our fellows, meet our residents, and they will give you a brief like their name and where did they graduate from. You can look up their residents and see where did they graduate from, and you will know, oh, okay, they have a lot of residents who graduated from like different countries, so this is most likely is an IMG friendly program. That's how did I know, like it literally just go into their websites and look up their residents. It will be there in their websites. And a lot of programs give like a brief introduction about them, and they will say we are IMG friendly program, and they can say that right front. But I will give you a tip, like it's a pro tip, since I applied so many times. A lot of the IMG friendly programs, they are very IMG competitive programs. So in terms of like, if you are an IMG friendly program, I need an IMG who scored like 260 and above. I need an IMG who is like recently graduated 2 or 3 years ago. So a lot of IMGs are applying to that program. And if you are not competitive, if you are not a recent grad, if you are not a person who has a high score, just like that, your chances are very slim. So do not look only to the just IMG friendly. Look into the other things. I ended up matching in a DO friendly program, which I am like one of the few IMGs in that. So I was a good match for them since I did the fellowship. But otherwise, a lot of IMG friendly programs look up other things. So this is just a tip. And the second part of your question, what are the challenges that I faced in the fellowship, doing fellowship without residencies? And what is the pros and cons, right? So it's, I will say, in terms of starting your fellowship without doing a US residency, the first few months is going to be hard because you don't know the system. Compared to the other fellows with you, they already finished their residencies, they know the system, the hospital US system, they know the EMR, they kind of, know everything. And plus you are if you are a fellow, nobody gives you that, orientation or training as a resident. So because you already know, you already, you're a grown up now, so you're on your own. They will give you like a week or two of orientation and then you go. So it was a little bit hard for me in the start because I had to, know everything and then, compete on a fellow level. So that's the hardest thing. The second thing, I think that the good thing about that, so the pro is when you finish your fellowship, you will be a very competitive, overqualified applicant for residency. You will have no issue doing your residency. You will feel very comfortable compared to the other, residents because you completed your fellowship. You have a very good background. So I feel like my fellowship prepared me very well to do the residency.
So just to add on that, for a person, for a non-US IMG person who's trying to optimize his application process, what things do you recommend?
So first of all, look up your options. And before everything, know your strengths and know what are you capable of doing. Because it's a very, I know it's a very intense process. It's very frustrating. It's a long process. If you are someone who's recently graduated their medical school, I think your best option is to match into residency directly. Make sure that you score very well on your step 1, step 2 exams and apply for residency. If you are someone who is struggling and who's an old grad who applied to residency several times and you don't know how to get in, fellowship is your answer. Look up the fellowship, go for that. If you haven't done your step 3, do your step 3. It's not easy, but it's if someone has done it before, I'm sure you can do it. I didn't think that I would be able to do it. I applied like 4 years, which was not easy. I know a lot of, frustration being someone who's like from out the system. So I know a lot of what are you going through right now, what is going through your mind. It's very frustrating. So take up your time, think everything that you're doing. If you and the fellowship is, I believe it's the safe, we will say it's a backdoor to residency. It's the safest backdoor to residency if you're someone who has a lot of the things that I like. I would say, I don't like the term red flags. They call it red flags in the residency application. So I had all the red flags. I am old grad. I'm someone who has below average scores. So because it's I don't think it means anything since we all practice medicine, we all know medicine exams. So if you're someone has those red flags, consider doing the fellowship. If you hasn't done your step 3, do that and do your research in the fellowships, like apply generously. It's just an email, by the way. You don't have to pay anything, so you're not losing anything. Just send all the emails to the fellowship programs. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. So we have one more question from our end, and then we will go to the audience's question. So you mentioned a little bit about the website. What are the resources that you recommend for IMGs who want to pursue this route, like the different websites and organizations you used?
I mentioned Frida, right? That's one of the main websites. It's FREIDA. So that's like it's a Wikipedia of all the residency and fellowship programs in the US. So you can look up whatever that you want. Internal medicine residencies, it will give you all the list, every programs. And if you want to look up like fellowships, they will give you all the list of the fellowships. So this is one of the big websites that's helpful in that side, in that term. I don't someone has asked about radiology fellowship. That I'm not sure. Yeah, thank you so much, Sabrina. So that I'm not sure about radiology fellowship. But as I said, go in Frida and type in radiology fellowship or residency. I know that there is radiology residency. It's very competitive, but it's very good programs. You can look up that. You can try and apply to radiology residency.
Thank you. So I guess now we can go to the questions from the audience. We'll go through the Q&A questions. If you have any more questions, you can add to the Q&A as we answer questions. So one question that we got is about the visa process after you apply for fellowship. So do fellowships programs sponsor H-1B1 visa?
Yeah, a lot of programs do that. As I said, when you're doing your due diligence and looking up all the programs, they will give you a brief and they'll say we sponsor H1, we sponsor J1. So a lot of programs do. Yep. Yes, definitely.
Okay. And then I'll ask another question. So this person now lives in the US but has completed their neurology specialty already. And so the person is seeking opportunities to pursue a fellowship that would allow that person to practice in the US. What are your suggestions?
I would say try first of all apply to residency, neurology residency. And at the same time prepare your stuff for fellowship. Do like two processes at the same time. Since you are already in the US, that means you don't have a visa issue. You're already here. Maybe you can do a lot of, some of the researches and paperwork, do some of research and apply to residency and at the same time apply to fellowship. And whichever comes first to you, that would be great. If you are an old grad, I would suggest go through the fellowship route. If you're someone who has good scores, it's worth applying to residency because it's easier in terms of getting a board certified at the end. It's easier if you have residency and then fellowship.
Okay, and one person is asking if it's hard to find a job with a fellowship only, and if that's the reason that you're doing your residency right now.
Oh, so the reason that I'm doing the residency because if you finished your fellowship, there is places they can take you without residency. They can hire you. But the issue will be that you're not getting paid as much as someone who has full board, who completed their residency. And at the same time, you cannot leave the institution. I think there is a lot of, in the contracts, you'll not be able to leave their institution. You'll be working for them for a long time. So it's easier for me to do the residency. So that's why I came back and did the residency, because I need to have the internal medicine board in order for me to do the nephrology board. Once I get the nephrology board, or once you're certified, and then you'll be able to work whenever, any place that you want. And residency is only like 3 years compared to the rest of your life. So I think that's like a small price.
Maybe also it will help your residency once you have a fellowship.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
And another question is if you have any information about fellowship in psychiatry.
I know that there is a residency in psychiatry, and it's a very good IMG residence. A lot of IMGs goes into psychiatry residency. So there you go. Apply to psychiatry residency. So I'm sure you'll get it.
Okay, and then we have received a question asking us about the time frame. So what are the steps for fellowship application, and how long is the time frame? How long does it take for the application?
So if you're applying through the ERAS for fellowship opens in July, and their I think their match day is in December. So from July to December, that's the regular pathway for ERAS. if you're not familiar with ERAS, that's the website that you apply to residency in the US through. There is ERAS for fellowship too. But I applied the non-official pathway, which I applied after December, like after the official match. And I looked up any fellowship program and I applied, and any program that has an opening or an unfilled position, they will send you an email back. So
Yeah.
a good time frame will be start preparing your things if you're looking into fellowships. If you have step 3, prepare your CV starting now. Wait until December, until their match day, and send all the emails and to all the fellowship programs.
And to add to that, what are the costs related to an application into the fellowship programs and other related costs as well?
So the cost for me, if you're applying to ERAS, it's the same cost as residency, but since fellowship you have limited options, so you will end up applying to less programs than residency, so you will like pay less. But if you apply the non-official route, which I recommend, you do not pay anything. So it's like zero payment, because you just end up clicking an email, that's all. So it won't cost you anything. If you're living in the US, I think that's worth doing. And if you're living outside the US, it's only an email. It's cost you nothing. After you get a response, and they will tell you, we need letters of recommendations. So you have the letters of recommendations ready to email them. After that, they will say, if they liked everything, they will say, okay, let's interview you. It will be like a Zoom interview. We'll do an interview on this date. You will do the interview. After that, they will start the process of recruiting you, which involves they can, send you a paper so you can fill it out, and it costs nothing, but it's everything else. I know a lot, it's a lot of people, the processes of applying to residency and fellowship, it's a lot of stress. I believe it's just very stressful, because you don't know what you're gonna do. You don't know, because everyone is gonna ask you, why do you want to do infectious disease? So you have to be, I always wanted to do infectious disease. So you have to have, a great personal statement. You have to have, a great attitude about things. And at the same time, I understand that a lot of these processes is not easy for us. It's stress consuming, it's time consuming, financial consuming. So you basically have to, lift up yourself, lift up your morals, make sure that you are confident in what you're doing. And after all, like, if you have done your best, I think the best will come to you. So try be positive, think in the positive way. So do not get discouraged if something failed or did not go the way that you want. Try again. Have some friends, have like a positive friends. They will guide you through the way. These webinars are really good example. You can sit and just express your frustration. It's good. It's healthy. So
Yeah, just to add on that question, so I believe from what you said is the applications open in July and then end in December. And then in December, after like you see unfilled spots, you then message the programs directly is what you are saying, recommending.
Yeah.
So one question is, how would you know which ones are unfilled if you're not part of the ERAS or, and
Yes.
then, yeah.
So that's a good question. If you know someone who will have the unfilled list, if you don't know anyone, it doesn't matter. As we said, you're gonna read that and you're gonna list up all the fellowship programs and you're gonna email them. It's only an email, right? They can just say, hey, sorry, we are filled, right? So it doesn't matter. If you get that list of unfilled programs for fellowship, that will be great, but that will be very specific. You need someone who is applying to that fellowship and he did not match, so he can get the list for you. But a lot of the time you don't know anyone, right? So just going to type in all the fellowship programs and list all the, I send in like 250 emails, 250 emails with one click. So just remember, put it in the blind CC, not in the CC, because everyone will see that you're applying to everyone else. So I send up 250 programs and then I got all the responses.
Yeah, and sorry, just to add on that question, because we also got a question in the chat box. So someone said, why do you recommend doing this instead of applying through the ERAS fellowship application? Isn't it better to apply to try that and then do this as well, like trying both?
Yeah, you can definitely try the ERAS. It's just, you know, the ERAS is it's for us, I believe it's kind of, you know, it requires the number of documents. It will take some time, but it's better because if you're unmatched, you're gonna get the unmatched, right? So go for it. Do the ERAS. If you're financially capable, if you have the time, do the ERAS, and it will allow you, you know, to get more preparation and, you know, get your all the letters of recommendation, personal statement, everything ready. So if you are able to do it, go for it 100%. Go through the ERAS process, but put in your mind that you most likely not get anything. So don't get discouraged because you're gonna get the unmatched list, the unfilled position, and then you'll apply.
Okay, another question we have in the chat box is for a person who's a specialist physician in Ethiopia who wants to apply for the fellowship program, does that person need another time experience with that specialty?
If you are a specialist, I don't think they require any like time. You mean for fellowship or for residency?
Yeah, for a person who's already done their residency in Ethiopia and applying to a fellowship program, do they need more? Do they need more experience with that specialty?
No. Like I say, I applied for nephrology and I never did nephrology in my home country. So sorry. So all they want is a residency equivalent training. That means you have trained in your country like a number of years in the internal medicine. That's all. They do not require a number of years.
Okay, so another person has a question on the duration of the fellowship programs that are available in internal medicine.
The fellowship, nephrology and infectious disease are 2 years, cardiology 3 years, geriatric is 1 year. But looking into the options, some of my friends did geriatric and they're applying to the residency right now. So 1 year, but it's not as a strong fellowship as doing nephrology or infectious disease. But at the same time, if you get in, that's good because it's only 1 year. You don't have to wait like whole 2 years like I did and then apply to residency. So it's a good track. But most of the fellowships, the other fellowships, I think is 2 years. I don't believe the shortest is like geriatric is 1 year.
Right. Thank you. And then, so we understand, I think for the audience as well, that you are just sharing your personal experience, and that some of the very specific questions would be hard to know from your perspective, as you've already done, the route through internal medicine and nephrology. So keeping that in mind, there's a question about the previous question that someone had asked you about psychiatry residency. Fellowship. So what they meant is, can someone who's already, like, someone can go for fellowship in psychiatry and rather than doing residency, if you know how that works.
So as you said, you can definitely try, look up into, I personally don't know any like psychiatric fellowships. What are the subspecialties of psychiatric, if you ask me, or the fellowships that psychiatry or fellowships in psychiatry are? I'm not sure, but you can definitely do the same process. Look up the subspecialty that you want to do. Let's say you want to do an addiction or something, addiction medicine, type in addiction medicine fellowship, and then you can email them personally and say, hey, my name is so-and-so, and I did psychiatry residency in my home country. I'm asking if I can do a fellowship, or there is an option for a fellowship in your program. Send email, and it costs you nothing. And and you will end up knowing a lot of the things. So a lot of the people are nice to email you back, and they will say, that's great, maybe you will have an opportunity, you can apply to us next year or something like that. So you will end up knowing more. So I will urge you to email the fellowships that you are interested in.
Thank you for that. And so we have a question. I think you've already addressed it earlier, but just so that you can summarize it again for the person. So there's two. So is doing step 3 mandatory for fellowship? And what are the preconditions to apply for fellowship? You've already mentioned it, maybe you can summarize it for them.
Okay, so as I said, applying for fellowship, you need to a residency equivalent training in your home country. You need to be ECFMG certified, and you need to have a step 3. Step 3 is a requirement since the GME, it's kind of like GME requirement from the fellowship program, since all the fellows are supposedly has finished their residency. So that means they have already step 3 done, because all of the residents do step 3 in the first year or second year in their residency. So being a fellow without step 3, the GME will raise a lot of questions to the fellowship program. So fellowship program will ask you to complete your step 3, but to make it easier for you, complete your step 3 and ECFMG certification, and you have a residency training at your home country, or residency equivalent training in your home country. And I believe that's all you need.
Okay. So there's also another question about the financial compensation of fellowship programs, and what is the visa status of fellowship applicants, and how do they go into residency without that visa status being without going back to their country?
First question is the financial. The fellows got the fellow's salary is same or slightly better than the resident salary. So you will definitely maybe we'll come into the year. So there was like recent raises in the salaries. So and it differs. It's according to the state. Some states base their fellows like maybe 50,000 a year, 60,000 a year, 70,000 a year. It depends on the state. It depends on the rents and living conditions of the state. So but you will get a similar salary or slightly better than resident. If you have a family, you will be able to live okay, you will be able to live in a good condition. So and that's for the salary. And secondly, I believe you asked about
The status.
is it sorry?
What's the like we know that during residency you need to apply for the G1 visa, but
Oh.
you apply for in your country.
I know a lot of people who has, like, personally for me, I did not need visa, so I'm not the best person to talk into visa issues. But I know a lot of people who needs visa, who completed their fellowship and apply to residency programs, who are accepting J1 H1 visas according to your status. So you will not have issues in that. So the main thing that you need to do is put in the work, get into the system, put in your foot into the system, and everything will work through.
Okay, and so
I think we have
yeah.
one more question in the chat box. For a person who wants to go into a competitive fellowship program like dermatology, is it doable? Is it probable? What are the chances?
Dermatology, I know that dermatology is competitive. All the American grads really, compete for and really, like derm programs. And the terms of competition in the US is very interesting, because when you think of a program is very competitive, that doesn't mean that this program is harder, or just it's not harder than any other program. But the payment is really good. Being a dermatologist in the US, you get paid really, really well. So that's why the derm residencies are very competitive. Same like OBGYN are very competitive, since you're getting paid a lot. A lot of surgeries are very competitive, since you get paid a lot. So that's why they are competitive. But never say never, as I say. So try and apply. You might be a good candidate for some program.
All right, so yeah, before we are about reaching our final question, so if you have any more questions, like last remaining questions, finalizing questions, please do ask us in the Q&A chat box. So someone asked in the Q&A chat box, what is your recommendation and observations regarding infectious disease fellowship programs, considering the fact that most infectious disease are prevalent in Africa, such as HIV? And if you plan to get back home and practice the infectious fellowship you learned, will it be a comprehensive experience?
Yeah. So infectious disease, as you said, we are coming from different tropical disease countries. We have different experiences. We see a lot of things that they don't see. Like we are very familiar with area, tuberculosis. Here they are, they hardly ever see a malaria. They don't know what's malaria, and they have like, different, infectious disease, common diseases. Let's say Lyme disease is very common here. But I would say that it's very enriching experience for someone who has done infectious disease in Africa, So you will have a very wide background. You will know a lot of things. You see a lot of things. We have a lot of hands-on and clinical sense experiences. So that will be very enriching. So that'll be very, very, very enriching if you are applying to an infectious disease fellowship here. So, and I think for me, if I want to go back, I think that's also like a very big question. We all like kind of, when once we finish our medical school, we have that dream of, coming back to your roots, giving back to your community. I think that's the essence of being a physician. Um, it's not about the money, it's not about how much you're making. It's about like how can you give back to the people? How can you use that training that you get in terms of helping other people? So I do think about that all the time. I'm not sure how it's gonna play out. I hope that I can one day go back and give back to my country. Uh, hopefully. Yeah, that's one of my wishes. I do have a family here, like I have kids, they grow up here. But yeah, I dream of going back, and this is my plan actually. Yeah. Any other question?
Yeah, I think Rahwa was asking, but she's muted.
Yeah, sorry. So there's also another question about if we could take the specialty board exam after a fellowship without taking US residency training.
Yeah, so unfortunately, no. That's why, because I needed to apply to residency. Since I won't be able to take the nephrology board without having the internal medicine board first. So, and I can't take the internal medicine board without doing the US residency, but fellowship makes it easier for me to get into residency. So that's why I was able to, finish my fellowship and then apply to residency, and I matched. So yeah, you can definitely, you cannot take your fellowship boards without having residency. I wish. No.
Also, there's a question about if fellowship in our fellowship application, we could if they could accept a letter of recommendation from our home country.
Yes, they do, 100%. So the idea of letter of recommendation is someone who has worked with you and has known you very recent. So it's since you're practicing outside the US, it makes sense that everyone that you worked with is outside the US. So it's very much acceptable. No issues, no problem.
Also, there's a question more about the application. So where you required only to send your CV and just your CV to the programs without your other documents to secure an interview.
Your first email, your first email that you send to the programs, that, as I said, you will say like a brief introduction about yourself and about your CV, and attach your CV. That's all. You don't need to do anything. Just attach your CV, because it's like, if you, it's just like a test. You will give it you don't have to write in a long email, just a brief email. Nobody has the time. Then make sure that it's sent in the morning, not at night. Try to look up your timing differences, and You will give them a brief. I'm this person. I graduated from this place, and I have experience in so and so. And I attached my CV if you want to look up more. And I love to join your fellowship program if there is any opportunity for me to join. And that's it. And they will ask you for more documents if they're interested.
Yeah. There was also a question about how what your interview was like, if you want to share with us.
So my interview for fellowship was basically it was a lot similar than what you are in what you're doing in residency. It's just everyone will ask you, tell us about yourself. So that's the most important question in all the interviews. So be prepared. I know it's very, nerve-wracking, and you'll be very, kind of feel like you're under pressure. Be prepared. And we know that nowadays everything is on Zoom. You can have a piece of paper, write down your thoughts, write down your answers, rehearse your answers with your friend. Tell me about yourself. So give a brief about you personally and professionally. And then why do you want to do our so-and-so fellowship? Why do you want to do nephrology fellowship? Why do you want to do infectious disease fellowship? You can give a brief answer to that. Rehearse your answers. And I believe it's very it's a relaxed experience, and during fellowship interviews rather than residency, because residency is very very structured, and program director, everyone has this certain questions and answers. But for fellowship, they have, why are you interested in nephrology? Tell us an example of cases that you seen in nephrology. And a lot of the other, logistics. Where do you live? Do you want to relocate? Do you want to live here? And also have a question in your mind ready to ask the other person, like tell me about your experience. So I don't think the interview has any tricks, but you have to be well prepared. You have to have your answers rehearsed day before, and try to be as relaxed as you can. We all know that's we can a little bit nervous about interviewing, but try to be a little bit relaxed, and just tell them about yourself, what you're interested in. Try to seem a lot, personal, approachable. Don't be a robotic, like don't be a robot, like just saying the answers. They want to know you. They want to know if this person, if I'm able to work with Rahwa for a 12-hour shift, is she a nice person? Is she someone that I can, laugh with and talk with? Like this is their mind process. Is she someone that I can work with overnight? Is she someone that I can, they want to feel comfortable as same that you are. So
we have one question that I think you already answered, but maybe for if our audience missed it, the question is if we could can we apply for a fellowship program before completing home country residency?
yes. So that's the short answer. You can.
Yeah.
You can get it. I did like for if you have at least 3 years of training, that's enough. So that's considered like a residency equivalent. So you don't have to complete the whole residency thing.
All right, and then we have one more question. I'm not exactly sure what the question is asking, but I can also send it to you directly so you can read it as well as I say it. So it says, thank you for answering questions. Just a follow-up on the question of to be board certified fellow, we need to complete the residency program as you have said. What if we don't and we don't get board certified is there any certificate that we can use for our fellowship that will be useful in our home country? So I think the person is saying, even if we don't get board certified, can we still use the fellowship in our home country? That is what I'm understanding.
Okay. Can you use the fellowship in your home country? So it depends on your home country requirement. I think if your home country is accepting the U.S. fellowship and as a fellowship in your own country, so that will be your answer. If your home country requires any additional boards or materials, that's it. But I believe for your own sake, if you finish the fellowship, make sure that you are board certified. Just is for your own sake. You don't want that 2 year training or 3 year training to go in the drain. Like, no, let's say 10 years later, you don't want to stay in your country, or something happened and you want to, move out of your country, or you just had to go somewhere else, or anything happened, it's life. Anything can happen. You want to have that board certification with you because it will be valid in everywhere that you go. So for your own sake, if you did a fellowship training, make sure that you complete and be board certified. This is just for your own sake. This is like an advice. If your home country says it's okay with us, you can just come and practice, we don't need your board certification, that's cool, that's nice, you can do that, definitely. But what if something happened? What if I need my board certification? I need something, I need some, board certification to be able to say that I'm board certified, and so on, so on, so on. So it's just for your own sake. It's not an easy training. It's very time consuming, very mentally, physically, everything. So you don't want that to get lost. So make sure that you get that board certificate.
Maybe to add on to that, are there any countries that could take the fellowship without board certification, like the UAE,
I believe UAE can. I'm not sure about Saudi Arabia, but UAE can take the fellowship without being board certified. Gulf countries, a lot of Gulf countries does. Not sure about Qatar though. I think Qatar has more demands than other ones. But yeah, but if you're fortunate enough to get a fellowship and match into a fellowship in the US, please get the board certificate. It's for your own sake. I know a lot of people will say, I want to go back, I want to practice in my home country for any other reason, but it's just another step just to help yourself. Laws can change between day and night. Like, let's say UAE changed their laws and said, no, we will not accept fellowship without board certification. So that will change your whole life plan right there. So make sure to do things at the level that you feel comfortable, and nobody can take that away from you. So do the thing that if you go through the training, finish the whole thing, finish the whole training, get the board, get the certificate, and then you can do whatever. It's then rest of your life. So
Right. Thank you. I just wanted to add, someone just asked, does Ethiopia accept a fellow without board certificate? I don't think any of us have information on that right now. You can do your own research. It's not a path a lot of people take, so we don't really have any information on that question.
and also there's one more question about if you're willing to tell us about the fellowship program you were in, for someone who's also considering the path.
Yeah. So I did a nephrology fellowship at Thomas Jefferson University in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia. So it's a 2-year training. Nephrology is one of the kind of, hardest medical fellowships. Training is very robust. I the hospital was a big hospital. Thomas Jefferson is like 1,000-bed hospital. So you have you will get like a lot of consults in nephrology. You will see a lot. You have a lot of exposure. You also get trained in the outpatient setting as well. By the end of your 2 years, you will get a certificate that you completed your fellowship. That means your completion is a certificate of completion. It's not anything else. And for me, I then at the end of the second year, I applied for residency uh, to be able to get into the final board requirement. But yeah, nephrology for someone who is interested is definitely very rewarding. You will see a lot, and your dialysis by itself is like, for me, I didn't have any idea about what's a nephrology fellowship look like. I did not do any specific nephrology training. I did only like an internal medicine training. But nephrology is a very nice field. There is also an option for you to do a transplant nephrology. It's a 3rd year if you are interested. It's like 3 years. If you want to do a transplant, that's a 3rd year. Yeah, so.
And then just because you're talking about fellowship, we have a few questions of one is, what does your day look like in fellowship training? A typical day. And someone said there's rumors that usually they prioritize those while you're in fellowship in regards to procedures and things that need to be done, that they tend to prioritize those that have already done residency. Is that true? And what does your typical day look like in fellowship training?
Okay, so typical day will usually the fellowship will start from 7 to 5, 7 a.m. to 5. And then you will have rotating in 4 different services. You'll have the dialysis service, you'll have the typical consult service, ICU, and a transplant service. So you will take like 4 weeks in each service, and then you will rotate again. The on-call schedule is you will have the call from 5 p.m. to the next day. If there is any consults, you will take the call that day. If there is any emergency, you will come personally to the hospital and see the patient. The on-call will be like once a week, and you'll have to cover a weekend every 2 months. The weekend will be like Saturday, Sunday, whole day Saturday, whole day Sunday. It's definitely not, I wouldn't say it's not easy, but it's doable. Like, it's don't put your mind into like what other people was going through. It will be different than you. It's a personal experience. Everyone has their own, personalities, have their own experiences. I worked with a lot of different attendings, and the feelings like people will say, hey, this attending is very hard on you. Make sure that you will get this and this and this done. He's very tough on the fellows. He's so and so. And I will end up having the best experience of my life. So it's very personal, differences. There's a lot of personal differences. So and you will have like, let's say your list will have like 20 patients plus. You will see them and you will write notes on them. You will round with the attending. Sometimes you will go home 7 p.m., 8 p.m. sometimes, like if I have a very busy day. But it depends on the attending. It depends on your service. It depends on how much patients you have. First year is very busy. Second year, it's very less busier, since you're more in the outpatient setting, seeing the patients in the clinic. And in terms of treating you said that treating the fellows who had their residency, like preferring them, or like giving the fellows with residencies procedures to do. No, there's nothing like that. We are all equal. I was the only fellow who doesn't have residency. I had all the other 3 fellows had residency done, but we're all equal. We all had the same responsibilities. We all had the same resources. We all had the same opportunity to do procedures if you want to. We all had the same training. Nobody can treat you differently. If you are doing the same responsibility, you are the same person. You are the equal footing from someone who did their residency or not. So I didn't experience that personally. No, it's just, it depends on you personally, and how you make people see you. Make sure that you are seen and heard. Make sure that you leave a good impressions for the attending. Leave a good impressions on everyone else. Be professional. So all the other things. So I did not experience any discrimination in that sense.
So we have one last question. So the last question is, if you did your residency in the same hospital you did your fellowship program, as it can be a good opportunity.
Yeah, so I will highly encourage that if you are applying for fellowship, since everyone will in that program will know you, so it will be easier for you to do residency in that same program, since you will, have all the connections, everyone there, and they will know you, this person is hardworking, and we'll take him for residency. A lot of my friends did that. For me personally, Jefferson University has like 0.09% of their residents are IMGs. So they're all like their own student. They take their own students. It's very hard to get in their residency, but I did end up matched into a program that's called Jefferson Northeast Program. It's also affiliated with Jefferson. It's a hospital. It's a community program that's university affiliated. So in a sense, it's helpful to match in the same program, but some programs are very, has very high demands, and they only take their students since they are university. But you will have a lot of connections from inside. You will know a lot of people and things, and residents, they will help you a lot. So yeah, so I ended up matching in a community program that also affiliated with Jefferson.
All right. Thank you for answering all our questions. I know we had a lot of questions for you, but we have finished our questions both from our side and from the audience. I hope it was helpful for all the audience that joined us today and gave you a little bit of an insight of what it's like to apply for fellowship without having done a residency. We have tried to answer our best to the capacity that we have. It's like I said, it's not a very common path for IMGs to take. So hopefully this gives you a little bit of an idea of what the different opportunities are for IMGs. Thank you, Dr. Azza, again for joining us today. I know Sundays are very hard and it's family days, but we're very grateful that you're able to join us.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. Thank you, Rahwa. Thank you for having me today. No, it's a pleasure. And hopefully I was helpful and I answered your questions, and wish everyone best of luck in everything that you're doing.
Thank you. If anyone in this audience have more questions or any comments, you can always reach out to the mentorship team at mentorship@yatinawag.com. Thank you again for all of you for joining us. We hope to see you all soon. Thank you and have a good day and have a good night.